got something kind of special for you guys today. I wanted to show you guys this amazing set of proxies, or playtest cards as they would prefer them to be called, that were made by the Toronto old school community. And these things just look amazing. I'm really excited about these and I love everything about it. So let's get right to it. There's a lot to show you. So first, let me take you to the website of the guys that are setting this whole thing up. So what you've got here is the Toronto old school community. See here at the top, they've created all of these old school playtest card resources. And you can see that they've got just like white border around the entire card with another fan's rendition of the artwork redrawn into the middle of it. And all these images were drawn by, sounds like two artists, Eric Fletcher and by Johnny Cash. I'm wondering if they're members of the Toronto old school community. It'd be cool to find out more about those guys at some point. You can see some of the cards that they've actually drawn up here, and they made them available to actually for anyone to download at the links at the top here. And this entire website, I'll have a link for this in the video description. And the guys, they talk about their philosophy on proxies and such here, but I'll get back to that in just like a little bit. But what I first wanted to go over is I wanted to mention that when I do live stream gaming, I'm not only into this idea and I fully support what these guys are doing, but I've already printed these and I've already turned them into usable playtest cards, and I'm going to have them in my decks instead of the proxies that I had made earlier in another video. A video that I'm actually going to link right now that actually shows how to actually create like high quality proxies. Again, not counterfeits, proxies. And what I'd also like to show you guys right down here, I'll make my little video small. So this is my case that I hold all my cards in. I'll set this aside for just a second. You can see I've got an entire stack here of these playtest cards that I've already made. And when I first took them, I grabbed the images and I printed them onto one of my grid sheets. This one got printed incorrectly. That's why it's like a leftover piece. But I had like the borders in there that exactly the size that I want to go inside my sleeves, so I could print these and just like cut them out. So I did this first, just on normal paper. And then when I made these, I went and got a bunch of white border cards, which usually are like, you know, revised cards, things like that, you know, since the printouts are white. And then I just went through and made myself a set of like a whole bunch of these playtest cards. And you can see how awesome all the artwork is. I mean, those guys, Eric Fletcher and the other guy, they did like amazing artwork on all of these. You know, like amazing drawings. I love what they did with the actual dual lands, how they kept the artwork for the dual lands, but they actually even kept in the little colored swirlies below that you have, because like for me that's such a nostalgic part of the dual lands, is seeing those beautiful swirly colors like that. So I really love it that they actually did that. So these ones are all actually extras that are not actually in a deck. So let me show you what I've got here with my decks. Now this case, this is what I actually, let me bump this over this way so you can see all the decks that are in there. This is what I actually use for tournaments and everything. And if I go through all of these decks, I should probably start with maybe this one first, because what I've gotten here is it's basically all real cards except for the playtest card proxies, except for like maybe like one card in this entire thing. So this deck is actually like all real cards. This is my Twiddle Vault deck. So these ones are all legit. So there's like, as you can see, there's no proxies like anywhere inside of this one, right? Oops. New sleeves, they get slippery. So so that's one deck that has like all real cards. If I put this away, sorry, give me a second. But then as soon as you go to like, you know, the next decks in the list, like Rug Crazies or something like that, I don't have like enough Power 9 sets and dual lands to have all my decks all set. So there you go. Like here's like a real Chronicles City of Brass, and here's one of their playtest proxy City of Brass. And then, you know, as you just go through, you can see the playtest proxies that are just kind of in there, and they're all nicely sleeved up and everything. It's kind of a cool deck. I'll just keep showing you guys because people might be curious about it. So you can see, you know, change of like real Magic cards, and then every once in a while you hit like one of these playtest proxies. These playtest cards. And some of my decks, since I just didn't have enough like real sets to go around, like this version of the deck, this one's funny. It ended up being almost entirely the playtest proxies. So it's like all real cards in the front here, mostly. There's one Chaos Orb there. There's some real duels, but then those are collector's edition. That's real. Now we start getting into like this fat stack of all these playtest proxies because I just did not have enough like extra sets of power to like really flesh this deck out, right? And so for every deck you see inside this box, they're all just like a complete mix of like real cards and playtest proxies. Yeah, this one's got a lot of real cards in it. It's funny, you know, Power 9 are like real in this one, but then like all these smaller cards are are actually like the playtest cards. Yeah, there's my Rush Lotus. There's another one in here somewhere. I thought there was. Okay, so just the Library of Alexandria on that one. So anyways, when I actually do a live stream on my channel, the next like, on Unhinged Magi, I'm going to be actually using these decks that you see right here, and I'm filming this Thursday night, and the next like live stream playing is going to actually be on Unhinged Magi on Saturday. I think at, what was the time we set? Like, I think 7 p.m. EST is when we're going to do that. And I'm going to have all these decks ready to go. But I wanted to make a video first here talking about these playtest cards and my support of what the Toronto old school crew is actually doing. And I should also mention there is other old school crews that are supporting the use of proxies in their events. The Northern Paladins also do as well. In fact, I've done other videos on Unhinged Magi talking to some of the Northern Paladin crew members. And I love it that they're actually doing that because for anyone who hasn't like seen in my other videos, I'm an enormous supporter of like proxies or playtest cards. Not for like any format in Magic, but for the ones that are crazy expensive, like specifically Legacy, Vintage, and Old School, I think are very deserving of proxy support. Because, you know, the decks, like, nobody ever intended for a deck to cost $50,000 to $100,000. And for people to push back on proxy support when a deck literally costs as like much as like an expensive car or like a small house in like flyover states in like the United States. Like, I mean, that's just crazy, guys. I mean, requiring that, it was never intended for Magic. I'm sure Wizards of the Coast intended for some decks to cost between like $50 and $400. Like, I'm pretty sure that they had a price of entry that they wanted people to get to, but they never planned on things being like to that extent. So proxies should be supported in those kinds of formats. And the guys in the Toronto old school crew, they're very much calling that out. Like, you can see that right here when they're saying like their old school Magic cards are absurdly expensive these days, which is true, right? And playtest cards are a fantastic alternative for use in casual games and at community organized, non-DCI sanctioned events. And that's important to realize because if you use these playtest cards, or even if you use collector's edition, like many old school groups will do, they're going to be non-DCI sanctioned events. The DCI doesn't even allow collector's edition or international collector's edition. So this is kind of like in the same lines. And now another topic I wanted to get to is like they talk about here how they don't like the term proxy because proxies is not the right term because other people have used counterfeits and they've called them proxies. But I'm really not on board with what they're saying here. I mean, that's kind of like saying, oh, well, you know, all these nefarious people that are literally trying to print counterfeits and pass them off as real or put them out into the market and to take some of the benefit away from like Magic artists and things like that. People that don't have like the best of intentions, they call them proxies. And I just don't really like the precedent that sets that, you know, we're going to just give up words in any language just because some nefarious people use them for nefarious ways that we're just like the rest of us just can't do it anymore. I don't really like that theory. So, because like as you guys might know, I've made a lot of videos talking about how proxies are not the same as counterfeits. A proxy, to be very clear, proxy means an honest stand-in. Like when you look at these cards here, they make no attempt whatsoever to pass as a real card. And that is the defining line. If a card that you've got actually is attempting to look like a real Magic card in every way, like the way it like feels, the way it looks, like you have to get in really close to see any differences whatsoever, that's not a proxy. That is a counterfeit. A proxy is a card that makes no attempt to do that. I mean, you could even actually, I've shown videos like the one I linked earlier on how to make cards that actually look pretty legit, but I put the word proxy right on the front of the card. And the other thing is, like, if anyone was to look at the cards that I was like showing how to make, like you get it within like a foot of your face and you're like, oh, okay, that's not a real card. I mean, you can tell because it's like, it doesn't even look real. In a sleeve from like 6 feet away, somebody might think, but then definitely you get within a few feet of it, you're like, okay, that's not a real card. And if you took it out of the sleeve, you'd be like, it's just a piece of paper. So like, it wouldn't fool anybody. So I'm not completely on board with the statement that they're making here. I get behind what they're saying, the intent of what they're going for. I just don't really like necessarily going that direction. And you can see they've got a little like hand here that they've shown. And if you come up to the top and you click on one of these links, you can go to the actual set of all the cards that they have on their sheet. And I think this was a PDF. So I just literally just grabbed these images off of here and then I put them into my grid and then I printed them. And they make a statement in that article saying that they're going to keep adding different images of other cards into this. Because, you know, some of them you might notice like are in fact really expensive cards, but you know, you can go grab a 4th edition strip mine very easily, right? Not expensive, no problem, right? Or you can go get a Chronicles City of Brass for not much money, but they went ahead and made proxies for these. Which actually I think is a really good thing, because now that they have proxies made for those, I just don't have enough Cities of Brass to go around with like all my decks. There's just, if I'm trying to run 8 old school decks at the same time, you just never have enough Mishra's Factories, Cities of Brass, never enough Demonic Tutors, Disenchants, things like that. There's just cards you just need to have a lot of. But anyways, I really felt it was important to signal boost what the Toronto old school crew is doing here. I love what they're doing. I agree with what they're doing. I hope other people take it into account. And not only am I doing this video, but like I said, I'm going to be playing those actual playtest cards in the live stream videos that I'll be doing on this channel and on Unhinged Magi. So people hopefully will come into those live streams, see those cards there and be like, what's this you're doing, Edwin? And I'll be like, oh, hey, the Toronto old school guys. And I'll give them a link and like send them to it. So I would love to see the support of playtest cards go wider in the old school community, make it a bit more inclusive. And if any of you have been watching this thinking like, well, if somebody plays with fake cards, if they use playtest cards or proxies, why is anyone ever going to buy real cards again? People think that at first, but I'm telling you guys, that is not the experience. If you talk to people who have actually used proxies for a while, or groups that have supported them, nobody necessarily wants to be the guy that like shows up and just proxies every like card in their deck. People want real cards. It's the same thing that people want to upgrade to alpha, beta. They want foil cards. Nobody wants to be that guy playing with fake cards. And so you don't have to worry about like, oh, well, I paid all this money for these cards and someone else just comes in and they proxy up the deck. You still had benefit buying those cards. If you bought these old cards, you have a valuable asset that is very sought after, rare and collectible. I think it demands respect from a lot of people. If like you lay down all these expensive cards, it's like, whoa, oh my gosh, look at that stuff that guy's got. You do get respect from it. There is investment value in it. There's a lot of benefit in actually having the cards, and that's not eroded. It's just not going to let you come in and beat people down with your wallet. And I know I'm kind of going into a tangent about that, but people have all these misunderstandings constantly. I have to kind of keep reminding them. Like people will say, oh, look at like the NBA or like some other sports event. you know, those are basically pay to win because they'll pay for these really good players to come in and like win the event. And that's kind of like not exactly, you know, that's kind of a yes and a no. The difference is, and this is what I see as like the cut line, you can't equalize out skill and talent completely. If somebody comes in and they're just a good player, they know what they're doing and they're extremely talented, there's only so much you can do to level the playing field. In fact, in a lot of sports and competitions, that's the very thing you don't try to level. What you want to level is that everybody has the same components, the same gear, the same basic requirements. Like, you're not going to have 6 guys on one basketball team and their team gets 4. No. They both get 5, right? When they come onto the court, right? And they all have to live by the same set of rules. If you go into NASCAR, like, there's limits put on, like, you know, what the cars are allowed to have in terms of like weight and power and things like that. But if you put, you know, Kyle Petty, you know, behind the wheel of like a NASCAR versus me, he's going to kill me every single time and he's going to destroy me because he's got more skill and he's got more talent. And if you put like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and like just all these amazing basketball players against like a high school team, yeah, they have the same number of people on the court, but it's the skill and the talent of the other guys that just brings home the day. And that's actually what I find with these Magic formats also. You shouldn't be winning by your wallet necessarily. You want there to be a cost of entry to get into the game, but you don't necessarily want the game to just straight up be determined because the guy could outspend you on his deck. That's not a healthy thing for a format. It's not very inclusive. And you don't have to worry about these cards dropping value of like everything else because people want these old cards. If you guys haven't realized that people want old cards by now, you're just not paying attention, right? So great job to Eric Fletcher and Johnny Cash, the artists who made all these images, and great job to the Toronto Old School crew. I hope they keep doing what they're doing. I hope that the old school community surrounds this effort and tries to signal boost it as well. Lift it up and kind of keep this going. Let's bring more people into this format, guys. It's an amazing format. So that's it for the video, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and come check things out on Unhinged Magi. It's an amazing channel.